Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Road Monkey podcast. My name is Kevin and I host a show that delves into people's journeys, explores their experiences and share inspiring stories from the moments and life events that have brought them to where they are. We are soon to head into our 6th year of podcasting, with well over 100 guests now having opened up and shared their experiences with us, imparting lots of wisdom for us to apply in our own lives. Our latest guest is no exception to that, and I'm excited to be joined by a young man I had the joy of working with previously and who has been on the most bizarre, crazy, adversity-filled life journey that for someone so young really does defy belief. Today I speak to Will Godwin, a content creator and videographer from Sussex, fresh off a summer of covering the incredible 100 cricket competition. I'm not going to spoil any of the twists and turns from his story, but Will really does embody the value of life lessons that sport teaches you, and that you can get through almost anything using those skills. So let's get straight into it, and episode 117 of the Road Monkey podcast featuring Will Godwin. Hello, Will. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good. This is one we've been trying to put in for a long time, and you've got a fascinating story that we're no doubt going to dive into. But do you want to just give our listeners and viewers just a little bit of an introduction without spoiling the surprises of what's to come?
So I'm Will. I'm a professional photographer and videographer. I worked with Kev for about 18 months with AP Race, and I've now gone freelance. Yeah, I've been across the world, worked in a number of sports, a number of teams, and my dream when I was little was to work in elite sport. I didn't quite realise that I'd be doing this job because I always wanted to be the athlete. But a couple of things happened along the way that sort of ruled that out. So I've gone with the next best thing, which is being as close to the action as I can without being on the field.
And in some cases on the field anyway.
Yes.
This story, I know it well, but it's very, its foundations are in sport. So just take us through those early years kind of up to like maybe 15, 16, where we're all kind of figuring out who we are. Like sport obviously played a big role for you in your early years. So just take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Like my childhood was I was a very competitive kid. I'd throw my hat in the ring at everything. No matter the challenge, the cost or whatever, I would just be like, yep, I'll give it a go. I want to do it. I think when I was younger, usually because I wanted to win, or I did want to win. That's just the nature of being competitive, isn't it? But yeah, always wanted to win. I think, especially like when I was definitely when I was at primary school, I was like, oh no, I am the fastest. I am the fastest runner ever, in existence. So I was like, I kept that up until the point where I was literally raced by another kid in my class round this like bark playground thing, and he beat me, and then I was like, oh, well, I now need to find something else that I can be better at someone at. So I was like, I tried to be faster than him, but it's just like he was just quicker. So I was like, okay, this little like 9-year-old has gone, right, well, I'm not doing that, but maybe if I do it long distance I'll beat him, and I did. So it was one of those things I'd always try and find a way. I did sailing, literally every sport under the sun. So sailing, triathlon. Now I'm struggling to think of sports after I've just said I could do everything. That's great. Yeah, no, tennis, football, badminton at one point, just giving that a go. And obviously 16, found the gym and stuff. Yeah, I've given everything a go and just been very competitive, and parents have always been like very much just give it a go. I didn't quite mean take everything to the furthest extent you can, but that's just what I did.
Well, obviously that lends itself to kind of multi-sport activities anyway. And obviously you mentioned there you found triathlon. So just talk us through those kind of early years of triathlon for those that are complete novices and don't really understand the space. What did a training week look like for you? And kind of when did you first get into that, kind of up through to the age of kind of 16, 17? What did that journey look like?
So I actually got into triathlon when I was about 12, because I did this like Go Try event that Mid Sussex Triathlon held. They put on these events every year. It's basically like a full weekend. It's basically like a crash course of triathlon. Like the guys there, like the guy, my coach Mark would give me a crash course. He was like 70 odd, but they did yoga, they did race prep, they taught you about nutrition. Obviously like specialized to each age group, because obviously you can only take in certain information depending on how old you are. But triathlon is you swim, you cycle, and you run. And we started by doing like this. I think it was a 400-meter swim. I think it was a total of like a 10K bike, and then I think it was a 2.5K run or something. It was like a super sprint sort of thing. But that was the gateway drug to triathlon for me. And then I did that every year for the next 2-3 years, and then they started running these 6-week like weekend camps. So you do these, instead of it just being one weekend, they do 6 weeks, and then they'd give a 2-weekend break or whatever it was. Or I think actually no, it was 6 weeks in Easter, 6 weekends, sorry, and then in the summer they'd have the Go Try thing again. But I was just like, I was hooked. I was wicked. I was like, well, this is thing. I've never been particularly good at one sport. I've always been like pretty good. I've always been able to pick stuff up. But triathlon was one of the things I was like, well, I'm not ridiculously good at one. So if I do all three and I'm pretty good at those, I might be able to get somewhere. So I did that through to 18, 19, I think. Got sort of like, I did a regional event. A guy was beating me when I was a kid. Through the juniors, he always beat me every single time, and I always finished third. There were always two guys better. One of those guys is actually one of my best mates, and he still competes now. But yeah, this one regional event, I beat the dude that came first. And then, yeah, got to 18, 19, and just, yeah, dissipated through uni and stuff. But yeah, it's good fun sport. Kept me fit.
And sport obviously helps give a lot of people direction. Like you've alluded to the fact you obviously wanted to be in professional sport as an athlete, and obviously still work in sport now, but in with a different hat on. Talk us through, I guess, those decision steps, because if you go to your GCSE choices and then your A-level choices, for a lot of people, that's when you start laying the foundations for that. And I think perhaps there's this misconception that at 14 or 15, we're all supposed to know exactly what we're going to do, and we pick exams based on, or pick our courses based on that, and we all skip off into the sunset and everything works out perfectly. So just take us through, I guess, more from an A-level point of view, obviously knowing you went on to university following that. Just take us through that kind of choice thing, where your mind was at that point, and in terms of where you thought you might be heading, your choices, and then we'll roll on from there.
Okay. Yeah, my parents, mum has a job she has loved for ages. She's a diabetes specialist nurse for pediatric kids. She loves her job. Dad is very, very good at his job, but he doesn't love it. So one of the things they said to me was, just make sure what you're picking you enjoy. So wherever you end up, pick things you enjoy, because realistically they will lead on to career choices. So my A-levels were based on what I was interested in, which was music, PE, photography, and history. That was because my college that I chose did an AS level and then an A level. So I started with 4. End up at the end of the first year of college, I ended up getting the best grade in history. I got a C, and that was the one I dropped because I was like, I just wasn't. The others were the ones I was interested in. Basically, it was a big kick up the arse. They were like, right, get your stuff sorted. And then second year, I started like quite well. I say that like there were 2 weeks that I did. All while like training for triathlon and whatnot and doing all the exercise I could. Like I started playing a 6-a-side league with my mates for football. That was good fun. Met some new friends there as well. Literally was at this local league that ran out the back of the school, or the college rather. So you had all people from everywhere come and do it. I say everywhere, across the area, not literally like, oh yeah, let's travel from Brazil to go play the 6-a-side league in Burgess Hill. But yeah, I suppose it all sort of came down to that like one Tuesday night where I played football with them, the 6-side match. Then I went across the road to have swim training for an hour. I think I remember it quite well actually, that bit. Like I was a bit tired and I was sweating and I struggled to get my trunks on because my body was just like, what are you doing? But yeah, did an hour of that, felt good. I'd also cycled because at that point, Mum had got like to the point where she was like, I'm not ferrying you around anymore. You're 17. You can get to places on your own accord. If you need to go somewhere, you go do it. And being a proficient cyclist, I was like, yeah, sound cool. Stuffed everything into like this really like my swimming rucksack. Just stuffed everything in there. So that smelled glorious after every time I did this. Mix of sweat, chlorine, and all the good stuff. And yeah, anyway, so I finished the swim session. I go unlock my bike. I text Mum. I say I'll be home in 15. I think it was, be home in 10 or something like that. And then I'll go. I just started cycling home. Yeah, I went round and round about under. Yeah, this under a bridge, and I could see the roundabout ahead of me, and then that's it. That's pretty much where my memory like sort of stops being clear. Yeah. Turns out the road I was on goes around a really gradual curve, so like you can see at least 100 meters in front of you at every point, but you get around this bend cycling, and turns out as I got under the bridge and then saw the roundabout, this car had come up the back and hit me at 70 miles an hour. So I've then obviously this has all been filled in because I don't remember all of this. There were passers-by those, or people going the other way that saw it. So car hit me up the back. I've flown back into the windshield and then flown 50 to 75 feet forwards and then skidded on the ground on my back. I had lights on. I was wearing a helmet. Like my bag is pretty brightly coloured. It's like this bright blue. I had lights on, doing everything I could to be seen. But this car still hit me, and then I've landed and then started bleeding out onto the road.
We'll obviously explore a little bit more around that, but obviously reflecting on that was obviously a few years ago. Like for some context, how old are you now?
24.
I'm glad we got that number right. So 7 years on from that, obviously, we look back and we reflect on things, and that was obviously a significant moment in your life. Obviously, we know that you survived because we're sitting here having this conversation today. But obviously, for a lot of people hearing that, and given that context around the fact you were heading home, you told your mum you'd be home shortly. Yeah, when does the memory kick back in? But also, just take us through I guess the bits that have been filled in for you, because obviously your mum was contacted, health services, emergency services were contacted, and there was lots of other people involved from this point in your story. So it's gone from, an innocuous cycle home from training to something that's going to involve a lot of people and ended up changing the course of your life. So take us through that moment when, you've hit the deck. You are alive, but you're in quite a critical condition. And let's pick up the story from there.
Yeah, find out after the break. So obviously I'm now on the deck, bleeding out onto the road, but as chance would have it, the first person to get there, like literally as this thing has happened, is an off-duty nurse. She's coming back from her shift. She literally just finished, I think it was Princess Royal. She's coming back, and she stops, sees me, and then stabilizes my head whilst I'm on the road. So she effectively saves my life then and there. Not that she knew it at that point. She was just doing what she's trained to do. Then grabs my phone, rings my mum. I was about to say my mum. I was like, I'm not Irish. My mum. And the emergency services, they get there about the same time. I don't know what she says on the phone, but clearly it works. So kudos. But yeah, go on, Will, use your brain. Yeah, then my memory sort of starts coming back, I think. So everyone's there on the roadside. My mum arrives at the scene, and I can hear her. And I'm like, so I just cry out. I'm like, because you never forget your mum's voice. And I was just like, Mum, I can hear you, but I can't see you. And she responded with, that's because you're looking at the road, darling. So I was like, at that point, she was like, okay, I still know he's with it, regardless of the condition he's in. And then we found out when we got back to the hospital how impressive that was, the response I'd given, or that I had responded, given the state I was in. And also, I was conscious, apparently, I don't remember all of this, it's a bit hazy, but I was apparently conscious for the whole time. Like, after the point that the nurse stabilised my head, and then, like, the ambulance and whatnot, I was talking and whatnot. The ambulance ride, obviously, was in a rush to get me back, so I was a trauma call. I think at one point we accidentally went the wrong way. But I was like nonchalant to this. I didn't know what was going on. I was just chatting away to this, cheering the ear off this poor paramedic. I think. And yeah, then we got back and found out my injuries, which was, medium severe brain damage, broken skull and bleed to the brain. Medium severe brain damage. Both broken scapula, broken sternum, 6 broken ribs. One was one side, 5 on one. Punctured lung. Lots of abrasions, like everywhere. Face was all battered up. My back. Legs were actually okay. That was really, like, I had cleats, so my feet just did what they were supposed to and flicked out on impact. No damage to my pelvis, was really lucky. But with the head injury alone, they said, oh, we've seen people never walk again from this. Like, okay. They got me standing within 24 hours. And then, I had loads of support from friends. It's very weird, like, within those scenarios, you find out who your real friends are very, very quickly and who supports you and whatnot. They drummed up a fund for a new helmet because mine had got totaled. Saved my life, but it had got totaled. I don't think I have it with me anymore. I think Mum did get to the point she's like, I'm binning it now. I was like, okay. standing within 24 hours and then out of hospital within 10 days.
So obviously at that point, and I think, obviously extremely traumatic experience, but I want to take half a step back. And I think, you'd had that wake up call on AS level results day, made your choice to drop your best grade and then get your head down. And for those first 2 weeks you had. And I think, you look up at the universe and go, come on, throw us a bone here. But the bone was actually that you were able to bounce quite literally back from that experience. And, we can talk about some of obviously the lasting impacts of that, but just take us through, once you've got through that first 24, 36 hours, whatever it is, where you're like, okay, like I think we might be okay here, in terms of long term. At what point did your brain start thinking about college and second year and A levels and exams and potentially university and all of the next steps, if you like? Because like I can't comprehend sitting in a hospital bed being told we've seen people not walk from your injuries, and then within a relatively short space of time be like, well, that's what you might think, but this is how it's going to go, and you start writing that narrative. So at what point, once you'd got that initial terrifying speed hump out of the way, did your brain go, right, school, what happens next?
I don't think at any point I was like, oh, school, woo! It was just like, at that point, I was like, that I was told how lucky I was to be alive. And you're a bit like, okay, so what are you saying? He said, well, you should be dead. I was like, right, okay, but I'm not. So at no point am I like, oh, what have I got to live for and all that stuff. Like at no point, I was all very much like, all right, sick, well, just crack on. I mean, a lot of it hurt, but I think I wasn't under a lot of physical pain, which was strange. Like, I mean, when I was moved, like, you could feel my ribs and whatnot, because I broke the back of them, so I could still breathe, and the punctured lung took a bit with a chest strain and whatnot. But, yeah, I was given a morphine drip as well in hospital. I didn't really use that. Some people think that's a missed opportunity. But no, I was just like, very much like, okay, I'll be able to do things when I can, but I'm aware my brain's just been like smacked with a sledgehammer about 20 times. So school just didn't become, a real concern. I got a message from the head of the school or the college saying, I wasn't a massive fan of him, but I remember him messaging and he was like, I can come visit if he needs and all this stuff. And I was like, please don't. Please don't. I'm okay. Yeah, I got emails and stuff. My parents got messages from teachers and whatnot. And then after 6 weeks, I made my first. I know, I think it was actually after 2 weeks of being out of hospital, I made my way back into college. Just sort of people, so basically meet teachers, say hello to a couple of people. My mates didn't know I was coming in, even though I'd seen them day in, day out. And I did. And they were like, I got lots of hugs and lots of, are you alright? Apparently they'd had an assembly about me. So I'd been on the big screen to the whole school, like college and lower school. And I was like, okay. So everybody knew who I was. I had not a clue who half these people were, but like people in college, because it wasn't that big a college, but everyone knew who I was. Yeah, so that was like talking to my teachers, and they were like, we were basically trying to work out a way that I could slowly get in, because I was like, I don't want to take a year out. I want to just crack on. And so this probably would have been about, so 2 weeks after I spoke to my teachers, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. So in answer to your question, there you go, with me rambling, 2 weeks was probably the point at which I was like, right, when my brain can actually manage the load, we will. I was told not to put any intracranial pressure on my head for the large majority of it, which took me up to the 27th of November. Bearing in mind, this happened on the 18th of September. 18, so I was 17 at the time. And then, yes, that's what, 2 and a bit months. Yeah, 6 weeks. And then I was finally told, right, you can put some start to pressure on your head, in terms of like load and exercise and whatnot like that. So slowly, very slowly getting back to that. So yeah, into college. In 6 weeks, I was back full time. So 6 weeks after hospital, I was back full time at college. I was like I did half days to begin with, and then like every other day for weeks. It took a while, even like after Christmas and whatnot. Like my brain was still healing, and it was like I was cognitively, I couldn't necessarily remember everything, and it was taking a lot out of me, I think. But then as soon as when I had my exercise back, and I got back on the bike, but like physically back on an actual bike, I'd been on a pedal bike, or just sort of not pedal bike, static bike before that. But then, yeah, got back on the bike on 9th of December, and then I went and did a 50-mile ride before the end of the year. So within that month. And then, then it was like full charge. You've got A-levels, you've got, 6 months until I take them. From that point, I was like, right, here we go. Yeah, I spoke to unis and stuff like that year. Literally, it was everything was going like there was all in one. It was a bit like, am I going to be able to get anything taken off because of the situation I've been in? But at the same time, I was like, I struggle with accepting help. Like if other people don't have it, I don't want it. Because I'm like, I want to make sure that I can do this properly. So yeah, did that. Spoke to Cardiff Met. They took their grades down for me, I think. So it was 3 straight C's is what I needed, or the equivalent of. Yeah, got through my A-levels in the end. And we came out with a B, a C, and a D. So that averages out as a C. So I'd got the grades I needed. So yeah, then went to Cardiff Met to do sport performance analysis. So I went very much down the sport route. My passion for photography was slightly killed off by doing it as an A-level, just because it's not the same. Doing it in following a curriculum, having to have every reason why you're taking stuff, just didn't work for me. Some people can do it, I couldn't. So I went and did that. And did that for about a month. When I got to uni, I actually went there to do triathlon at uni because I had a performance centre. So, but then when I got there, I was told I just wasn't good enough. Like, being a regional level, like, unless I was already like climbing a national ladder and being on performance pathways, I just wasn't good enough to just face the facts. Instead of like going, oh, well, that's it then, I then was like, okay, always wanted to try rowing, so I'll give that a go. And tennis. I started those 2. So that was pretty good. And then, about 2 months in this time, I did a bit longer. I did a bit longer before something happened. Of any accord, really. But rowing team was great. Rowing was one of those things that I found very naturally, like I was pretty good at, which has been the first time I'd had that for anything. Like I was actually better than other people. Just naturally picked it up. It was very smooth. It was really, I felt at one with it almost. Within a month, I was doing like national times on the erg, on the row machine, sorry. And then, so we went out on a Wednesday, as every week you go out on a Wednesday at uni. Bucks Wednesdays, always enjoy them, always go have a laugh and drink a lot. I went out with the rowing team. We then came back at like 4 in the morning, I think it was. 4 or 5 in the morning, I think I got back. Then, very chilled day the next day. We had a training session on the Thursday evening, but nerves were worried because it was like an easy session. Our coach knew we'd been drinking, and he was like, "It's fine." He encouraged it. Okay, cool. Rocked up, and then he suddenly went, so he was a big Irish bloke called Mick, and he suddenly came to us and went, we've got Welsh Indoor Nationals in less than a month. We need to start doing some testing for it, just so we know where you're at. All of us looked at each other and just like, he's joking. Not now, surely. But, being the athletes we are, we just sort of got the ergs out, we cracked on. 2 times 750 meter efforts. And yeah, we went for it. We gunned for it. First one came out well. It was like 2:0 something. It was quick. For a 750, I was happy with that. The next one was... that sounds really quick now. Part of the point, it was quick. And then second one I did, it was like, I had a minute's rest in between. Then started the second one, that was like... yeah, again, it was pretty good. I was like, okay, cool. This is good. Except I was really tired at this point. I just finished. I just bent over the rower like that, just breathing. My mate gets up from beside me, pats me on the back, and walks behind me. Says, "Good job, mate." And then everything goes black.
We'll obviously touch upon what happens next. And spoiler, you weren't hit by a car at 70 miles an hour on an erg in the gym. But I think
that would have been impressive.
but I think, again, without dramatizing it, I think it's like it is important to kind of get across the fact that I have no idea what the odds are. I would imagine they are pretty low of an athlete going through what you went through at 17, bouncing back, getting through the A-levels, heading off to university. Like, statistically, based on those injuries, that's really hard to do. To then go off to university, pick up a new sport, and what we're about to explore happen. I'm sure that the alignment to number of times you've been struck by lightning, those kind of odds. So let's talk about the fact, you've done that max effort. You are gassed. You're sitting there, and your mate says, "Good job," and then it goes black. Obviously, there is a period that we're going to discuss that there is no accounting for. And then everything comes back. There is the bright light. So just talk us through that kind of 4 or 5 minutes experience and what you had filled in following what was another crazy life experience, a bullet dodged.
Yeah. I think I'd rather have taken the bullet, to be honest. Yeah, so basically killed over, blacked out, and then next thing I know, about 5 minutes later, and I've woken up, there's paramedics around me, all these like flashing lights. I say flashing lights, it's not flashing lights, it's just the bright lights of the centre I was in, but because I'd just been conked out, didn't know what was going on, I was strapped to this spinal board with a head brace around me, and there were paramedics kneeling down beside me, and there were people running around or whatnot. My team was somewhere over there. And all I could feel was that someone had jumped on my chest, like just properly 2-footed and just... So what it turned out was that I'd had a cardiac arrest on the row machine at the end of the session, literally after my mate had said, "Good job." That was killed over, blacked out, and I'd gone into cardiac arrest. My coach then had literally jumped on me and given me CPR. The lifeguards at the centre suddenly got a call that they need defib. He's actually a good friend. I haven't spoken to him in a little bit, but he worked as a lifeguard there. He grabbed defib and then came and zapped me. And as soon as it zapped me, I've come back and I've shot up literally like a bolt. Eyes wider than anything, like not knowing what's going on. Very disorientated, but literally like that. And they've sort of coaxed me back down. And the second time I come around, obviously I then can't move because I'm strapped to this board. And this is where things start becoming very real. I say that, they're not really. I'm just like, oh, hello, there's people here, and I can't move. So, yeah, we did. Then, like, while this is all happening, my mum's been rung as well, like, on my phone. So that's like the second time that she's had a call at a similar time of night, like, from my phone, and someone else has picked up. Yeah, so really, I'd say traumatic for her. But like, she's told, and then she gets on a train, heads to Cardiff, which is it's worth noting because I went to Cardiff Met, which is, so it's basically like, it's 180 miles from where I live. It's a 3.5 hour journey total, on a good day. So yeah, mum goes and makes that journey, and then yeah, I just I get taken to hospital. Yeah, I'm chatting again, similar situation, chatting the ear off this poor paramedic. Get to the hospital. I still don't really know what's going on at this point either. I get put in a hospital bed, and I'm just sat in A&E, like, attached to a number of wires, ECGs, defibs, whatever. There's a doctor by my bed, and at this point, I get my phone back. She gives me a ring. Sorry, I say she. Cat's mother, Will? The doctor said to me, I think you should give your mother a ring. Just let her know you're okay. Like, okay. So I gave her a ring. Mum picks up and goes, hello, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, fine. You alright? She's like, yeah. Where are you? I said, I'm in A&E in hospital. Okay. But the fact that I'd responded with, yeah, fine. Why? Like, as if nothing had happened. At this point as well, it's the doctor is giving. I've never had anyone give me a death stare like it, but the probably shook me to my core. Like, just, I didn't even look at her. I could just feel gaze, and she was like, doctor just literally went, "Give me the sodding phone," in a nice way. That's probably not what she actually said. I can't remember it really, but she just went, "Give me the damn phone." So I just sat down, just put my arm out like that, and just gave her the phone. She then explained to my mum that I had a cardiac arrest. It was serious. I'm okay now, but I'm in hospital, and yeah. So I was probably about 20 minutes away at this point. And then the doctor then turns to me and tells me how serious it was. And because I was, at that point, I was like fine within an hour, and I was ready to go home. I was like, okay, sick, done. Yeah, I can go home and carry on. I finished the rowing session, and then carry on with normal life. And that's
So obviously that wasn't the case. You know, anyone who's experienced anyone with a heart challenge knows it obviously comes with longer term implications. So, you know, I know when we've spoken previously, you talked about the fact that the first incident, you know, was a very physical challenge, whereas actually quite quickly the physical aspects of this, once you were stable, were, you know, put to the back of your mind a little bit. But actually the psychological aspect of it, of, you know, what's the limiting factors of this, it being, you know, a broken arm, you can very clearly x-ray and go, right, the bone is healed, let's crack on. Whereas actually, you know, something that is as technical and as different as a medical challenge as you've had here obviously comes with longer term ramifications. So just talk us through again that, I guess, recalibration, because again, you know, you've got an academic, you know, future certainly for another kind of 2.5 years following this. And actually, what goes through your mind when you come off the back of that and go, I've committed everything to sport and I've now potentially got a problem with my heart? How do we know what implications that's going to have? What kind of conversations were you having with doctors at that point to actually re-establish yourself? Because I know when a lot of athletes or people at all levels of sport have sport taken away from them, either for a temporary or a long-term reason, that can really affect their identity in terms of who are they and what they're doing and where are they going. So being that this is quite a formative stage in what comes next in your life, what kind of conversations were you having with those medical staff?
Well, I was Glassware. I don't think. I feel like that's not necessary. I was petrified. I didn't like if they said to me when I came in, they told me like the ramifications of what had happened and the fact that they're just going to find out and confirm that the defib had gone off. And then if it has, that I would not be leaving here. It's very unlikely that I'd be leaving the hospital without having an ICD fitted, which is an internal cardiac defibrillator. It sits right here. You can't really see it, but it's a small little defib. It's about this big, like that. And basically it monitors my heart. It doesn't do anything. It just monitors it, and it's got a wire that goes from here all the way around into my heart. And if my heart was to ever go AWOL again, it would deliver 250 volts and shock me back to a normal rhythm. But yeah, the conversation with the doctors, they didn't often have, at that point, didn't have often people, because it was before the footballers started collapsing. So they didn't have very many people that were that fit that had these things. They knew it happened. Like, so Daley Blind used to play for United. I think that's his name. He went and played for Ajax. I think he still plays with one of those in. Christian Eriksen's another one that now has one of those things, I think, or there's other people that have collapsed and whatnot. But then there was huge like publicity around it. But I was before that, and there was very little information. So when I was asking stuff like, am I going to be able to do this again? Am I going to be able to do this? All they could say was like, well, you're not going to be able to row again. And I was like, so what? Because I found that. I thought this was my calling. This was where I was going to be the best. Like, this was my road to the Olympics. I often said to Ads when we were working together, like, that was, and to you as well, I was like, I thought this was my Adam Peaty moment, you know? But yeah, it was, not to be. And I was very restless. Like you mentioned, the car crash was it was a much more physical injury because my body was actually broken. I couldn't do anything because it was all healing and I had no energy. Whereas this was all like I felt fine within an hour. I then spent 3 weeks in hospital and I felt fine, but I couldn't leave because we hadn't fitted the device yet. I started doing stuff like deadlifting the bed, I did press-ups, I did wall sits, I did everything I physically could, whilst having to keep my heart rate between 120 and I think it was 40. So they were the gaps before the alarms would go off that it was either side of that. I set it off quite a few times, just doing like press-ups and stuff, because I didn't want to lose muscle. On me. But yeah, I did those things nonetheless, and yeah, I think I remember taking a photo in the bathroom of the hospital the day before I had the implant, and I was like, this is the last time my chest is going to look normal. And just thinking, this is bizarre. Yeah. Swing round to when we came out of hospital, it was like finding sport that I could do. It was then tennis. Like I switched from a two-handed backhand to a one-handed backhand, so no repetitive strain would go through this side. Like I can still lift and I still go to the gym, but I'm not supposed to overreach or lift weights above my head. So there's things I can't, but there's there's things I can do. And that was the thing that I decided to focus on. I spoke to Mum about it. She was like, I turned to her and went, what if they turn around and say I can't do sport? Because I'm not sure it's worth, like my life isn't worth it if I can't do sport. And she went, well, if they say that, we'll deal with it. And it was very much like, okay. We just dealt with things as they came. My cardiologist, Trudy, she's very, very good. She said, we went through a list of things that I possibly could do. So basically kept her, like, for gym work, it was biceps and triceps. Like, it was kept in the range of motion alongside rather than that way. Not that you can see what I'm doing because the camera's that way, but you know what I mean. It's no like pushing and pulling, it's all up and down. So that was it. And then I then focused on tennis. And there was always because I'd done so many sports, I just was like, well, this is it now. I'll put everything in tennis and everything in the gym and everything that I can do. Then 2 years later, I had a call from a cardiologist who was just checking in, and I found out that I could do press ups again and could start doing chest work. So after like 2 years of not doing anything, because being thought that I couldn't, I was allowed to do it again. So I slowly built up and doing stuff, and now it's like, yeah, it's very trial and error. And dealing with stuff that you don't know about is the most difficult thing. It's the unknown. In both situations, that's been the scary thing. So going through uni with this element of, I don't know how my life's going to look because nobody knows. I started seeing a psychologist from uni at that point. He was an ex-veteran, an absolutely lovely man. I don't know if he's still alive, actually, but I hope he is, because he's an absolute gem of a human being. But he understood the whole dealing with death thing and still being alive. So he taught me through a load of things, and that was big. That took a while for me to mentally deal with the fact that my life now looks a lot different. So it was focusing on the things that I could do. Yeah, and bearing in mind at this point, like I hadn't explored very much as a human being. Like I'd not had a proper relationship, I'd never really been a drinker either. It just, my life had evolved around sport, and it was like, okay, well, you're now limited in that capacity, but we're going to maximize it, and then you need to also see what else life can offer you.
And that's there's some interesting parallels here, and I'll link it in the notes for anyone who's interested. But there's an incredible athlete whose story I crossed paths with a few years ago, and he was Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double for the first 7 Harry Potters, and then in the first half of the last film had an accident go wrong and was paralysed from the neck down. And he was a world-class athlete, an incredible stunt person. And he's recently published a book called The Boy Who Lived. I guess a touch of irony there, but that reframing it and figuring out what comes next. And it's a fantastic book. And he's also got a documentary on Amazon Prime, which I couldn't recommend enough. But I think we often sit there from the ignorance of not having gone through it and go, if I couldn't do that, what's the point? Or I can't possibly imagine overcoming all of those things. Sport gives you a toolkit, a set of skills that allow you to work through those things. So obviously, again, no spoilers, but we, navigated university, and you're still very active to this day, many years on from that. So what perhaps 2 or 3 of the real core things that sport, those early years that you talked about where you did all those different sports, and what were the things that you've lent on massively over the years that perhaps you didn't know at the time were actually some of the most valuable things you were taking from the sport, not just a medal?
I think, strangely enough, like I've always been a competitor. Like I said previously, I've never been the best at something. I've always been very much a competitor. Like I've been able to fight for podiums and whatnot, and that's been great. And when I have had those wins, it's been unbelievable. But I think sports just taught me that just not giving up and showing up for yourself can give you a key. It just that transfers into so many other areas of your life. It's like developing that, not necessarily stiff upper lip, but just the ability to deal with losing, and still then the want to improve and do more from sport applies to everything. Like academically, again, I'm not the brightest. I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm thick, but I'd say I'm more creative, and like that's where my work has taken me. And so even when I'll even if I was struggling at A levels, like I just grind it out. I'll be fine. I'll just keep going until we hit a wall, and then if I hit a wall, we'll just keep going through that as well. Yeah, I'd say the ability to like communication is one as well. Sport teaches you like team sport or individual sport, being able to communicate to other people how you're feeling or what you're doing. Whether it's in the middle of a bike course and you're going for an overtake, or if there's like debris on the road, there's that ability for cycling just to point it out to other riders. It's just like it can save someone's life, and it's like just learning that through sport can then take into relationships, like then communicating to your partner how you're feeling, and if there's any bumps in the road that are coming up in your life, it's just making sure that you communicate those too. So other people are prepared, and you're not being selfish in the information that you're collecting. I'd say, it teaches you so many things. The biggest things that I've taken there is probably just not giving up, and that determination and competitiveness of life. If I can't be the best, I'm gonna figure out a way to get near the best.
So I want to reflect a little bit, because let's go back to the Bark track at school where someone ran past you for the first time and you started figuring out what comes next. And many times along the way, through external things that have happened to you with both the bike accident and the cardiac arrest, but also, turning up at university and being told, in a certain sport that you'd aspired to move into, you're not good enough. And actually that kind of competitiveness has clearly risen to the fore. But also I'd like to add in that thread that you talked about of finding like what you love. Like if I'd have told that kid when he opened that envelope after AS levels what was probably coming up, like number one, you probably wouldn't have believed me. But if I'd have told you 8 years on from that moment, you'd be laying on the grass at the Oval, shooting one of the most incredible sports events that's emerged in Britain, certainly over recent years, and I know at the time of recording, it's very recently come to an end. So when
literally that weekend.
Yeah. So when you reflect back on that sporting experience of obviously working the 100 this summer, what wisdom would you go back and give to perhaps your, let's say, more naive 15, 16-year-old self that's going through those GCSEs and that first bit of AS levels where you had no idea what was to come, and yet you'd already started to acquire some of those skills that were going to help you get to where you are currently?
I don't know, because I don't think I do. It's really strange. Like I think I've made some mistakes along the way. Like I know I've got plenty of life to live, but I've definitely made some mistakes along the way, relationships or otherwise. I'm a very driven and loyal person to whatever I do. So I don't think I'd say anything to my younger self and be like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. I'd probably just keep going. It's one of those things that you're going to have ups and downs. You can't do everything perfectly, so why try to? Just do it. Yeah, it's like going back to what my parents told me at the beginning. It's like, do it because you enjoy it, and the results will come. Like like this summer as well, like the 100, probably my most enjoyable job. Like, I had some wicked experiences working with Adam and AP Race and the training camps we did and the clinics and all that stuff. Working with these boys for the month, things that we did, saw, the team environment, all of it, I was like, this is unreal. So cool. Like I've ticked off loads of people's bucket list things. Like I've trained with Olympic athletes, been to some of the most historic grounds in sports. At the end, and if you told my younger self this, you'd choose your hand off. So I'd say that don't do anything different. I'd just say to him, just keep going, just crack on.
Well, obviously, we can't talk too much about what's coming next because there are some exciting things in the pipeline, and stay tuned for more information. But obviously, there's, based on all the exciting things that you've already ticked off, as you said, on that bucket list, there's lots more to come. I want to touch on, for the video viewers, the T-shirt you're wearing. If you can just tell us the little story behind that ill-fitting T-shirt, and I think that'd be a nice way to pull all this together.
Thing is, you said ill-fitting, which is going to give my mum another reason to go, oh, you should throw that out now. I was like, no. The armpits may be gross because I've had it for 5 years, and yeah, but and I'm bigger than when I got it, but still, So in my first year at uni after the cardiac arrest, bearing in mind it was 13 months after. Actually, that's not relevant yet. That after the arrest, obviously my tennis coach at the time heard about it. He was then also doing a master's in sports broadcast, so he was doing this stuff to do with media and whatnot, and I wasn't really in tune with it, but his lecturer messaged me and said, would you like to be part? Just want to have a chat with you about what's happened, and would you be interested in being part of a documentary? And I was like, okay, I'll have a chat. So we went into this Costa on campus and just had a chat about stuff, and found out as well that I'd been hit by a car 13 months before. And so, wow, your story's like incredible. We've got an American university coming over who do professional documentary production, and we're putting together 7 athletes from our university to initiate this project for this documentary, and we'd like your story to be one of them. I said, okay, yeah, sure, why not? I thought, what's the worst that could go wrong? It might be quite cool or whatever. To meet some more people. So yeah, they came literally. So that happened in the accident happened in October. I had this conversation in. Can't even remember. I want to say it was like December, and then I met them in. Oh no, we had more conversations in January. I had Skype call with them, and then March they came over to film it. That was incredible. Being part of that documentary, and then it was released on ESPN in the States and several million homes around Wales and the UK. It was a surreal experience, like having, I wouldn't say 15 minutes of fame, but it certainly felt like that, where people then discovered who I was and stuff I'd been through, and it was the closest I could get to people having an insight into what I dealt with, just so they understood even a little bit more, because no one can actually understand unless they've been through it. But it was really nice eye-opener to have my story told. And it was called Transatlantic Storytelling 2020. That was the first year they did the program. They've done it in 2024 as well, but that was a newer one. But that was the reason. After doing that, I was like, that's really cool. So when I got to the end of the 3 years of my degree, I was like, I don't want to do analysis. It just doesn't agree with me. Like, the numbers were cool, and I was all right at it. I was pretty good at it. I got a job with it, doing it part time with the LTA and working with Andy Murray and elite tennis players. That was cool, but the thing that I wanted to do was be able to tell stories, how my story had just been shared. So I then did the sports broadcast masters that my coach had done, and then I did everything from presenting, podcasting, camera work, live TV. They've got an incredible setup there. They film every live game of rugby, men's and women's, because our rugby team in Cardiff is really, really good. And that just taught me a load of broadcast training and or journalist training, I guess you could say, and that's led me to the job that I've got now, which is allowing me to tell stories of athletes everywhere, which is wicked.
Well, we'll obviously link that documentary, which is available via YouTube in the notes below. But it's interesting because having had a big part of your life story told, and not even being 25 years old yet, like you said, you've got a lot of things that many people would have wanted ticked off their bucket list in a lifetime, but actually you're still only just getting started. So, for a lot of people out there, we'll obviously link your Instagram and your LinkedIn so they can follow what comes next. But what would your closing message be to, we've got a really diverse group of an audience in terms of age and people that are on this journey at different stages, but, you've had such an incredible life experience, both from the challenges, but also the incredible opportunities. So what would your closing message be to everyone out there who's trying to navigate what comes next?
I'd say for anyone of any age, do the stuff you enjoy, like to the fullest, because you never know how long you're going to have with it. Yeah, I thought, when I started rowing, I thought this was going to be it. I loved it. I thought, yeah, let's give this that. I went full beans. Same thing with tennis. I still do now. Obviously, I do so many different sports now. Like I've got High Rocks in December. I've got Masters counties this weekend that I haven't trained enough for, but I've literally just got back from working the 100 2 days ago. Yeah, it's been unreal. So I'd just say, yeah, like especially as kids, like you never know how long you're gonna have with something. So let them try everything, see the stuff they don't like, see the stuff they do, and then you'll find your way. I would never think for the life of me that I would end up where I am now. And yeah, I've taken some hits along the way. But I have it here just because I was like, it's cool. To end up working with a team like the Open Invincibles and then coming back home with that, can't really ask for much more. Like although I wasn't on the pitch, I know I contributed in some way, and yeah.
It's a lovely way to pull it all together, and a really powerful message there for a lot of people that can get lost in the day-to-day and perhaps step away from things that they really enjoy doing. Yeah, as I said, we'll link everything you're up to and get people to follow what comes next. Obviously, the documentary, definitely go and check it out. It's a bit of a heart render. We don't just hear from you, we hear from other people in that kind of ecosystem. But yeah, a huge thank you, Will, for your time today, and really enjoyed it.
No worries, man. Pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
A huge thank you to Will for joining us today. You can connect with him via the links in the notes below this episode. As always, please be sure to hit subscribe however you're joining us today, and we look forward to you joining us again soon for another episode of the Rogue Monkey Podcast.